Hello, JLD here, and welcome to Master MicroStrategy. This is a special series of videos I'm doing on specific topics that relate to MicroStrategy. I did a 1 hour and 40 minutes epic presentation called The Complete History of MicroStrategy. You can find this video and others like it in the video playlist that I have on my YouTube channel called Master MicroStrategy. So it's in the same channel as this MicroStrategy Today channel, but it's under the Master MicroStrategy playlist. Another one that I uploaded recently is how I dollar cost average a specific dollar amount into MicroStrategy every single day, not having to buy one share or two shares, but a specific dollar amount that I choose. My specific number is $210 to pay homage to the 21 million Bitcoin that are available. But it's another great video you can check out in the Master MicroStrategy series. So this video is going to be very special because it's a website I use on many MicroStrategy Today videos. It's the MSTR-Tracker.com website. The founder of this, the creator of this is Radu. He is a wonderful human being. His story is fascinating. His Bitcoin story, his MicroStrategy story. We get into all of that. That's at the end of the episode because we start with the value, which is we go through every single part of the MSTR tracker, every single part in exhaustive detail because Radu is passionate about Bitcoin and MicroStrategy and Michael Saylor. I am passionate about all of those things as well. And if you're watching this, you're probably at least starting to become more passionate about these things if you're not already. So there's so much interesting information in this interview with Radu, where I just let him go through, again, every one of these charts and cards and graphs, and he just goes into great explanation. But remember, none of this is financial advice. These are just his opinions, my opinions. We're just having fun, on a passionate play that we have with MicroStrategy. So do your own research, my friends. This is not financial advice. And I'll flip over to that interview now, and please enjoy. All right, my friends, as promised, we have the creator of MSTR-Tracker.com, Radu himself. Thank you for your time, Radu. The show is yours. Take it away.
Thank you, John. Yeah, so I guess we're gonna go over every part of the MSTR tracker today. And just starting off with the site, you can see that there's two sections to it. There's the top section, which shows you some key KPIs and the current values for those KPIs. And then there's a bottom section that shows you several charts. And those let you see historic data and how the data has been trending over time. So looking at the top section and the current KPIs, you can see there's several cards, 5 to be precise. The first card is MSTR Market Overview, and this one is pretty straightforward. You have the current stock price of MSTR, its market cap, basic shares outstanding. If you multiply the stock price by the number of basic shares outstanding, then you get the market cap. And then you also have assumed diluted shares outstanding. So what this represents is essentially MicroStrategy, as part of their Bitcoin acquisition strategy, they've issued convertible bonds. And when those convertible bondholders choose to convert, new equity gets created that dilutes existing shareholders. So that equity is not currently part of the share count, but if they do choose to convert, new shares will be created, and that's reflected in the assumed diluted shares outstanding. So that's that. Moving on, we have rankings, various rankings actually. So the first one is US ranking. So this means that MicroStrategy is currently ranked 115th out of 500 US companies. And if you actually click on this, it shows you that in the past day, it's climbed 18 spots in the US ranking. And also shows you like which companies it jumped over. So you can see it jumped over these 18 companies, such as Chipotle, and Motorola, and various others. So that's that. You can also see the full. So in this first view, you see the adjacent companies next to MicroStrategy. You also have this full rankings view where you can see all the US companies ranked starting from the first, which is Apple, and you can see their market cap and also the delta, which is how much um, it's to do with it's their daily performance essentially. So like this past day on Friday actually because it's Saturday today, Apple fell down 0.2%, Nvidia's up 4.45%, and so on and so forth. So yeah, you can explore the full rankings on this page. You can also download the rankings if you want to have them in a CSV format. So there's this download button here. Moving on, you have the S&P 500 ranking, which is how MSTR ranks in comparison in relation to all S&P 500 companies. So you can see now it's ranked 118 out of 500. And then there's a little disclaimer here at the top saying that this ranking is based on the full market cap. Usually with these indices, they do something called float adjusted market cap when weighing each company, but that's not what we're doing. But yeah, I don't think that's that big of a deal. Essentially, float adjusted market cap only includes publicly tradable shares, and the full market cap also includes like investor held shares that are not publicly tradable. But you can read more about float adjusted market cap if you'd like. NASDAQ 100 ranking, same principle. It's just the NASDAQ 100 companies. You can see MSTR is 45th out of 100. I think this one is pretty interesting. It's daily traded volume ranking. So this shows you that on Friday, MicroStrategy was the fourth most traded stock in the stock market, which is a pretty big deal because all these other companies, they're $1 trillion plus companies. So the fact that MicroStrategy is seeing this volume is pretty insane, in my
I think
opinion.
that's one of the most underrated
Yeah,
statistics is the fact that MicroStrategy, which is a fraction of the size, less than 100 billion market cap, is in the top 5 consistently with these other behemoths. I mean, it's insane.
for sure. And it's been like ranked fourth preferred for the past like 3 weeks, I think, at least.
Insane.
Um, and yeah, I think it's gonna end up jumping at the top. And
Absolutely. All right, I
and
know we got a lot to get to, brother. Let's keep rocking.
okay, all right. Bitcoin price, this is very straightforward. Everyone knows what this is. Bitcoin market cap, this is based on how many Bitcoin are in circulation times the Bitcoin price. That's what you get. Top assets ranking, this is how much where Bitcoin ranks with regards to all the other assets out there. So you can see Bitcoin is just behind Alphabet. And eventually, most of us believe with a lot of certainty that it's going to overtake gold. So it's going to become the most valuable asset in the world. Uh,
Yes.
and then if you go to full rankings, you can also see like where MS MicroStrategy ranks. Well, it's not 24th, but it's at the bottom, and
Yeah.
it's probably going to keep climbing, and it's gonna.
It'll be
I
number
think
2 eventually.
it'll be number two eventually. Yeah, exactly. Um, so that's that. MSTR holdings. This is how many Bitcoin MSTR holds on their balance sheet. This number only goes up and never goes down. Holdings value. That's what you get when you multiply the amount of Bitcoin you have by the Bitcoin price. You get 43.72 billion at the current Bitcoin price. Ownership of 21 million. They own 2.13% out of 21 million Bitcoin. So 446,000 is 2.13% of 21 million. Average cost per Bitcoin. This is their average cost basis, and as they've acquired more Bitcoin and as they keep buying the top, the average cost basis keeps going up. Corporate holdings ranking. So this shows you the companies that own Bitcoin on their balance in their treasury. essentially. So there's 70 companies currently, and the total number of Bitcoin corporately held is 593,605, and MSTR's dominance is 75.2%. So I think this is a pretty interesting metric to keep in mind. It shows you that MicroStrategy is like the dominant Bitcoin company out there, and given where they are now, I don't see that ever changing. They're probably going to remain the most dominant Bitcoin company
They will
out there.
remain number one of whatever forever.
Yeah,
Period. And what's interesting is that I'm looking at this now is MicroStrategy's dominance is 75%. Bitcoin's dominance isn't even this high of the overall cryptocurrency market, which is fascinating. So, I could see the the MicroStrategy dominance going down a little bit as finally these other corporations start to be created. But something that I'm sure you've been tracking as well, Radu, is these new ETFs that are coming out that are only going to be putting in companies that follow the MicroStrategy playbook that have 1,000 Bitcoin or more, $100 billion market cap or more. And guess what? MicroStrategy is going to be the number one rated ranked because they're ranking by number of Bitcoin. Um, they're going to be getting a 25% weighting in those ETFs. That's the maximum that they can get, and it's going to be amazing.
for sure. One thing Michael Saylor talks about is that you want to identify a monopoly and you want to invest in it when you think they're going to remain the main monopoly in that space. So Bitcoin is a monopoly in the digital asset space. MicroStrategy is now a monopoly
Check.
in the space of Bitcoin Treasury companies.
Yeah.
So they're not going to get dethroned
Number one, baby.
for sure. And then you can also, if you go to ETF list, you can see the ETFs that currently hold Bitcoin. You can see how much their assets under management amount. So you can see there's 12 ETFs, and you can see that this is the amount that they own.
Fidelity's about to pass Grayscale. That's cool.
Yeah. So yeah, that's that. You can also download these rankings if you want them in a CSV file. So yeah, moving on. And we've only covered the first two cards.
Right.
Yeah, so Bitcoin per basic share. So this number, you get this number by dividing the Bitcoin balance by the number of basic shares outstanding. And this is essentially by how much Bitcoin each share of MicroStrategy is backed by. And this is actually a key metric because you want the equity you hold to be backed up by more and more Bitcoin as time goes on. That's the main value proposition of MicroStrategy, and that's the key performance indicator that they use. And it's related to Bitcoin yield. We can talk about it when we get to the Bitcoin yield part. BTC per diluted share is the same concept. It's just that you divide by the number of assumed diluted shares. And this is taking into consideration the dilution that happens when the bondholders choose to convert to equity, which they all do because the bonds are performing very well, so they will convert. BTC value per basic share. This is, I'm trying to remember the calculation here.
I was under the impression that this is the amount of shares that you own, essentially multiplied by the Bitcoin per basic share.
Yeah, exactly. That is what it is. And this one is the same thing, but multiplied by BTC per diluted share.
So real
MSTR,
quick,
yeah.
should we be more focused on the value per basic share or the value per diluted share, in your opinion? Like what number is more important to kind of be tracking?
I think the value per diluted share is more important because it takes into account the dilution that happens
Which
when the
is
bond,
going to happen.
which is going to happen, right?
Because
Exactly.
and,
So
and correct me if I'm wrong, but essentially what's going to happen is that these individual or these companies and institutions who hold these bonds are obviously going to convert into shares because it's be a much more valuable play for them to do. And it's also very valuable for them to do that for MicroStrategy because they get that delta as well. So MicroStrategy is winning on every level here.
Exactly,
Oh,
exactly.
it's so amazing.
So yeah, this is the metric that I would
Got it. So we're
focus on.
looking, I will focus on that because I have been reporting in my daily videos the value per basic share, but I'm
Hmm.
going to now flip to the per diluted share because that's just more of a realistic where it's going, which again is amazing because this is accretion, my friends. This is accretive action. The ATM, the at the market selling, accretive. When these things happen with the notes in the bond, accretive. So keep going, Radu.
Absolutely. Yeah, so the next one is how much a single MSTR share costs in Satoshis.
That's a cool
So
number.
I think it is a cool number to keep track of. And what we'll probably see is that MSTR share is going to keep costing more and more because it's going to keep outperforming Bitcoin. Um, and we can quickly look at the chart here. So this is the chart that shows you how much a share costs in Satoshis
Mm.
historically. So if you set the time controls to all time here, that's how this works.
I mean, even in the last year, it's crazy how much. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow. That's all time.
so you can see that it's been climbing. In 2020, one share cost 100,000 Satoshis, and now it's 340,000.
Wow. It got over 500K at one point. That's nuts.
Oh yeah.
All right. Jump on back there.
Yes. So NAV premium against basic share. So this is essentially um, the market cap of MSTR divided by the BTC holdings value. So the market cap is 83.3 billion divided by 43.7 billion, and you get 1.9x currently. Um, One thing to keep in mind is that this metric does not take into account their debt. Um, so the one you probably want to track is the second one, which is NAV premium against diluted share. Because currently all their debt is convertible debt, and this one ends up taking all that into account by using assumed diluted shares
Yeah.
in the calculation.
Unencumbered debt.
Yes. Yeah.
So good to know. So basically, in this card here, we'll be focusing in the future on the diluted share, the across the board. All three of these will be focusing on diluted.
Yeah. Makes sense. So moving on to the fourth card, performance metrics. So total cost basis is how much money MS MicroStrategy spent on acquiring their 446,000 Bitcoin. And unrealized P&L is their profit, because now their holdings are worth 43.7 billion. So if you add these two numbers together, you're going to get 43.72 billion. And then here you have the return percentage. So this
Boom.
15 represents 56%. So that's that. Debt servicing. So they currently have $7.2 billion in convertible debt. And the way that works is that they're currently paying $34 million in interest every year, which translates to a 0.47% interest rate. Um,
Insane.
so that's all they pay to service this debt.
To take
Um,
fiat money and get the best preservation of capital in the world immediately, by the way. And this, nobody's going to hold you to this, Radu, but I just do have the question. Do you think there's a chance in 2025 they'll actually be getting negative interest rates? People will be paying them to take on these bonds? Because I've heard that. There's been a few
yeah.
people who've been saying that. And I mean, they're always oversubscribed. It's a possibility.
Hmm. Yeah. I haven't thought of that question before. You just brought it up. So
I mean, imagine this
th-
interest rate going negative at some point. It could, I mean, it could
that
happen.
that that would be crazy. Potentially,
Oh,
if they're oversubscribed, it might
they're
go
always
negative.
oversubscribed because these bond, they're looking at the best performing bond. The blended
Yeah.
convert of these bonds is outperforming Bitcoin.
Yeah.
It's outperforming. It was 90% return.
That is crazy.
It's
I don't think
unbelievable.
there's a precedent for that.
There's no no. Listen,
So
Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy are breaking all the rules. They're breaking all the precedents, and I'm thankful for people like you putting it up here on the internet every day so that individuals can finally come around to what is happening. So keep going, my friends.
for sure. So the other thing I wanted to say was that as far as I know, as an individual, you cannot get debt at 0% interest to invest in Bitcoin. I don't think that's a thing. I've tried looking for it.
Yeah,
it's not a thing.
it's not a thing.
So if you buy Bitcoin, if you buy MicroStrategy, you're essentially doing that, and you're letting Michael do that on your behalf. So that's the value proposition right there.
While he's also creating the Bitcoin Treasury company of the world and offering,
Right,
I'm sure you were reading about the $2 billion of preferred stocks that he's now going to be spinning up. I mean, they are so far ahead. I can't wait for the Q4 earnings report in February. It's going to be amazing.
for sure.
It's gonna
Uh,
it's gonna make you busy. By the way, you're gonna be busy. You're gonna have to do some updates.
yeah, I love doing this, so
That's awesome.
I'm excited. Um, okay, so moving on to the fifth card. So in the top section, you can see Bitcoin yield. And essentially what this means is by how much they were able to increase the Bitcoin per share for the shareholders. So from the beginning of the year, the Bitcoin per basic share has stayed constant because they haven't bought any additional Bitcoin. So that's why the yield year to date and quarter to date is zero. The moment they buy Bitcoin and it ends up being accretive, this yield is going to increase.
Wait,
Uh,
Michael hasn't bought Bitcoin in 4 days.
yeah,
Actually,
that is
he
crazy.
probably has. He just hasn't announced it yet.
Yeah. Um, so
So last year, by the way, it ended right around. It was like 76% year to date, which is mind numbing, and it was around 46% quarter to date for Q4, which their projections were 6 to 10%. So talk about over delivering. I mean, these guys, unbelievable.
yeah, I think Michael talks about how it's better to underpromise and overdeliver.
Yeah,
So I think that's what he's been doing.
over
Um,
and over again. Let's talk about this FASB stuff. This is interesting.
yeah. So FASB is this new the there's this new accounting standard starting with January 1st, 2025, that MicroStrategy is going to have to adopt. And essentially, what it means is that up until now, they haven't been reporting their unrealized gains on their Bitcoin in their um, they just haven't been reporting that. So with this new accounting standard, they're able to report that, and that's going to lead to new investors jumping in based on this new type of reporting that they're going to
I
do.
actually said this on my video today, which is I told my dad about MicroStrategy like back in the middle of the year when I started buying, and he he's been an investor his whole life, and he went checked it out, came back, said nope, can't do it. Their earnings per share is horrible. It's in the tank, and I was like, I get it, but you don't get it. Like he didn't get
Right,
it, and it's too bad. But this is gonna take individuals like my dad, who's a boomer with a lot of money to invest, and all the other boomers and all the other younger people that are doing this as well, plus TradFi, traditional finance. And it's not always their fault either because they have like charters and they can't invest in companies that have like terrible earnings per share. Like they have to hit a certain threshold, and that's not their fault per se. Some of them might be chomping at the bit, like, oh my God, I hope that we can get in before it gets too crazy. Like they see what's happening and they're trying to stay quiet about it. And some of them might be the bears that are trying to suppress this. I mean, I don't want to start conspiracy theories, but I mean, listen, something special is going on here. Radu, back to you.
for sure. Um, so actually, I think it would be helpful if we look at this Sailor chart section to do
Let's
with
do it.
FASB
You're in charge, man.
to explain all these numbers.
You're the boss. Take us away.
So if we go to this side, uh, there's various charts here, and if we look at the EPS and PE one, I think that's going to help explain these numbers that we're seeing here. So
Okay.
um, yeah, let's start with the numbers for the last quarter. So this last quarter, Q1, started 4 days ago. And the way this accounting works is that at the close of last year on 31st, the Bitcoin price was 93,429,000. Sorry, 93,429. And right now, Bitcoin price is 98,000. So in order to get the earnings per share, you have to see what was the total gain on their Bitcoin based on those two Bitcoin prices. So given that they had a starting balance of 446,000 Bitcoin, the gain they got is the balance times the difference between the Bitcoin price in the beginning of the year and now. So the difference is like 4,500 per Bitcoin. And given that they have 446,000 Bitcoin, if you multiply those two together, you get a gain of two, around $2 billion. And then to get the EPS number, you divide $2 billion by the number of diluted shares. So that's how you get $7.41. Um,
Yeah,
I
that's
hope
very
I,
helpful. And I will say this, a lot of people were saying that are very much on the side of MicroStrategy being amazing. Like it's actually kind of a good thing that the end of the year was a little anticlimactic and a little choppy because that's just setting up MicroStrategy for massive success going forward when it comes to this specifically FASB
mhm.
situation. Do you agree with that?
um, which part? Can you repeat that
Basically
last part?
just that the fact that because like Bitcoin and MicroStrategy was a little dumpy at the end of Q4
Hmm.
2024, it's actually making it much easier for MicroStrategy to outperform because now if Bitcoin just has a little bit of recovery and goes a little bit over 100,000, now all of a sudden MicroStrategy's sitting on a much higher earnings per share, so that when the S&P 500 comes to look at them and Q2 Q3 whenever that is, it'll just be even that much more of a like a wow, this company is really rocking it.
Yeah, I think you can go either way with that. Like, even if it did outperform at the end of last year, it could still 10x this year. So, um, yeah, I think it's just gonna keep outperforming. So,
I mean,
I guess
you and
it's a
me
nice
both.
gift. It's a nice gift that it underperformed maybe at the end of last year, and we start from
A
a lower
lower
bottom,
starting
but
point,
a
yeah.
lower starting point. But in the end, I don't think it matters that much. It's
I
more
mean,
of a
listen, when we zoom out, it is not
yeah,
going to matter, my
it's not
friends.
gonna matter.
All right, keep
Uh,
rocking it.
um, yeah, so what I described earlier gives you the EPS for this quarter starting 4 days ago. And given that they had a gain of $2 billion, you can translate that to what was the average daily gain quarter to date. So that's $521 million quarter to date.
Unbelievable. I mean, they're breaking all the models.
For sure.
Breaking models.
For sure. All your models are destroyed. Uh, that's the new model. They're all destroyed.
Man, I
Uh,
mean, bears are watching this video right now. They're so mad. They're so mad. Keep going.
yeah. I mean, they're probably thinking this is too good to be true. The music is gonna stop, and then you're gonna regret it. But what they don't know is that the music is never gonna stop. It's just gonna keep going.
I love it.
Uh, so yeah, so those give you the quarter to date numbers. There's also this TTM, so trailing 12-month EPS that uh, is used normally when calculating the PE. So to get this number, there's a bit more math involved because you have to take into account all their purchases and the gain from each respective purchase. So for example, Q4 is actually uh, if you look at Q4, so their starting balance was that there's a gain on their starting balance, and then there's a gain on their acquisitions. And for each acquisition, for the gain, you have to take into account the price they bought Bitcoin at and how much Bitcoin they bought. And you have to add them all up together, and then you get a total gain, and then you divide the total gain by the diluted shares. So, like for Q4, you get $27.49. If you do this for the past 12 months, you get $48.19. And the way you um, compute the way you calculate the PE ratio is that you take the current stock price of MSTR and you divide it by their uh, earnings per share, and that gives you a 6.8 PE ratio given the past this TTM EPS. And this is pretty exciting because most tech companies have a PE ratio of like 35. So it shows you how undervalued MicroStrategy is when it comes to its PE ratio. Um, there's like at least the 5x to go to match every other company.
And that's one thing
And
that Michael Saylor was talking about during the Q3 earnings report. He's like,
right,
people are not understanding that this is a growth company. They're not valuing it as a growth company.
right. It's a hyper growth company, and
Hypergrowth.
it's not valued as that currently because they don't understand what's going on. And
Common
once they
theme.
do,
They don't
yeah,
understand.
and once they do, it's probably gonna spike up to, I don't know, maybe 80 PE, and then it's gonna come back down eventually. But there's a lot of room to go here.
I'll be along
I
for
think,
that ride.
yeah, awesome. Um, so that describes all the numbers you're seeing here. Do you want to go into the charts?
Let's go to some charts. Yeah, I know we're gonna rock through some things here, and we don't want to make this too long and kind of convoluted for people. And maybe you and I will be getting back together at a future date to,
Mhm.
go over some more things. So take it away, whatever you feel is right.
Right. So, um,
Maybe collapsing this. That's
yeah,
helped me in the past. Yeah, that's
yeah,
nice.
yeah. So this view gives you several interesting charts that you can look at. Um, and you also have time controls, so you can choose to see if you want to see the data for all time on all these charts or just for the last year. Uh, Usually last year works pretty well, so we can go back to that. So the first one um, is essentially a projection of where MSTR is going to be, and it uses uh, two regressions to map this out based on historic data points. And the axis, as you can see, is it's the NAV premium multiplier against the Bitcoin price. So um, yeah, so I guess initially we were seeing that as the Bitcoin price goes up, the NAV multiplier kept going up, and we wanted to project this out into the future to see what's going to happen. Uh, Lately, it's not been going up as initially modeled. So yeah, I guess in conclusion is that all models are broken. Take take what you will from this. I think the main value proposition is that Bitcoin per share is going to keep increasing. I think this is still interesting to look at, but I don't think it's necessarily the main thing to look at.
Yeah, it's interesting to see where it's been kind of
Yeah.
elastic band wise, where it can go, where it can come back to. I mean, I would not personally be surprised of seeing a 4, 5 MNAV at some point. I don't think it's
Hmm.
going to stay there. Like it's going to kind of, but that's the thing I keep saying in my video a lot of times is volatility is a feature. It's not a bug.
Hmm.
Volatility is the vitality of MicroStrategy. It needs to have the volatility to the upside and downside to keep the options interest exciting, to keep all the things rolling in the way that it's going. So this is interesting to kind of track that, and we can kind of keep going from here.
Absolutely. And you can see how there's a bunch of historic data points scattered on the left side of this linear regression and some on the right side. And that corresponds to the volatility that you're describing.
Mm-hmm.
So you could potentially use this as a way to determine if MicroStrategy is currently undervalued based on historic trends. But what I'd say is that it's always undervalued. So
Right.
if you can't get in, you should get in. You
I mean,
probably don't
when I
want
saw it
to.
at 1.7 last week, I was like, I'm clicking buy, and I
Yeah.
made a very happy buy at 291, which I'm pretty thrilled about.
Yeah. Uh, Sounds good. So, okay, moving on. So this chart shows you, um, it essentially shows you the buy activity that Michael Saylor has been doing. So every orange dot represents a moment when Bitcoin was purchased. And if you hover over the dot, it shows you that on this date they've purchased 24,000 Bitcoin. And it shows you the price they paid per Bitcoin and the total cost. And every time they make a purchase, the average purchase price increases. The average cost basis per BTC. So you can see if you hover over this as you move forward, once you pass this by, the average cost basis per BTC increases. Um, and the NAV premium tends to go down with each purchase price because essentially he's converting the premium into Bitcoin. Uh, so so that's that.
And then the size of the circles are representing the size of his purchase
Yes,
price.
exactly. And
Were
then you
you
also
were you
have
the were you
mhm,
the inspiration for the Sailor Tracker? I think it was maybe 2 weeks ago. They changed from like the the green dots to the orange dots. Then they did go back to it.
for sure. Yeah, that I came up with that idea first, and
Nice,
then
Radu.
and then the person that manages the other site, they were like, "Oh, that's a great idea."
It
And
is, and Sailor loved it too.
yeah, and actually, if you click on this alternative view plus SEC filings, it takes you to
Oh, there
this
it
other
is.
site, to the Sailor Tracker.
Mm-hmm.
And if you click on more in the Sailor Tracker, it takes you back to MSTR Tracker. So you can
Oh,
see there's some nice synergy there.
good synergy.
Some
Love it.
good collaboration.
Big time.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, I love it. There's an MSTR updates Twitter handle that I've been following forever, and they just gave me a shout out yesterday because they're watching my show, and like that sent like hundreds and potentially thousands of subscribers to my probably the reason why my video today is over 20,000 views already, which is nuts.
yeah. The other interesting thing with this chart is that you can see in 2022 how MicroStrategy was in the red.
Mm.
So in here, like the holdings, their Bitcoin holdings was worth less than they paid for it. Um, and this is essentially the bear market that happened in 2022. And it's nice to see that even during this bear market, when they were in the red, Michael Saylor kept buying Bitcoin, and you can see these orange dots here.
That's what I love to say.
So,
I love when people are just like, but what if Bitcoin has a crash? I'm like, it already had a crash, and look what happened to MicroStrategy during it. Like, they bought more Bitcoin, they made themselves a stronger foundation, and now they're, off to the races. And if there's another one, all the debt is unencumbered. Nobody can tell Michael Saylor to ever sell. It's
mhm,
unencumbered debt.
mhm,
The Bitcoin are unencumbered. Life is good. Let's go.
for sure. Um, okay, so moving on. So this chart shows MicroStrategy's performance compared to all the other main assets out there, like Nvidia and Bitcoin and Tesla. And you can see, like over the past 4 years, uh, MSTR is completely dominating. It's up 2,400%,
Mm.
and Nvidia is only 1,200%, and Bitcoin is 750%. So that's pretty it's pretty cool to see. Uh, so this chart is also pretty interesting. So essentially, this is showing you what was their rank against all these other companies historically, as well as its market cap. And you can just see it climbing through the ranks of like US companies, S&P 500 companies, Nasdaq 100 companies. So the final conclusion of this is that it's going to end up being number one in all these indices against all these other companies, uh, and the market cap is going to 5 trillion, 10 trillion, and beyond.
Yeah. And a lot of people
Uh,
realize this, but like, listen, Apple, they're a great company. Google, great company. Like Amazon, great company. And guess what? They are getting so disproportionately rewarded for that by being so high in the indices. They're getting 8, 9, 10% of all the inflows that are coming in. And that's just this perpetuating machine that is going to be happening to MicroStrategy as we go. It's just like the flywheel keeps going, my friends.
Absolutely. Uh, okay, so that's that. So this chart shows you the trading activity. So you can see like in 2020, after they first adopted their Bitcoin strategy, uh, the traded value amount was about like $10 million, $20 million. That's how much it was traded. So now it's $10 billion.
Whew.
So that's how much is that? Going from 10 to 800. That's a 800x increase in trading activity over the
And
past
so
4 years.
that's where they're at, like the number four in volume. Is that what that's referencing?
Yes.
Got it.
Yes. Um, exactly.
Amazing.
So, so that's that. MSTR share costs and Satoshis, we covered this one. This is going to
This is
keep going
great.
up. Uh, NAV premium and P ratio. So this currently shows you the basic NAV premium. You can also click on this to see the one against diluted share. It's essentially the same
hmm
thing. It's just slightly higher. Uh, and then there's the P ratio over time. So I think this one is pretty interesting. You can see it steadily climbing. It's just an arrow going straight up, and I think it's going to keep going up until we
But
get
the
to
key word is volatile with
yeah, it's
volatility, which it has
right,
to. I mean, that's the life.
right. As it's going up, it's extremely volatile. So it's volatility to the upside. So
Big time.
pretty pretty interesting to see.
Pretty exciting.
So this one, I think this one is pretty key. This shows you the Bitcoin per share over time. So you can see that in um, 2020, the Bitcoin per diluted share was 0.0003, and now it's 0.0015. So as long as this number keeps rising, then we're good. That's what we want to see.
Big time.
Uh, and this is essentially the Bitcoin yield that they're able to generate. Um,
Oh wait,
so
wait,
that's
wait,
that.
wait. Stop. Go down real
Uh,
quick. Go down further.
uh,
Okay,
uh-huh.
my friends, you're watching this video. Radu is a very humble and generous person. He's actually to date my biggest super share gift that I've been given is by Radu. He's an incredibly kind person. If you're getting value from stuff like this, from this video, from his tracker, please donate. Support value for value. Donate sats. This gentleman is amazing. He's giving his time, his energy, his efforts. Let's make this happen for him. So thank you in advance, Radu, for all that you do. And thank you, viewers, for supporting Radu. Keep going, brother.
Thank you, John.
And
Um,
I can guarantee you he's going to use that to buy MicroStrategy.
oh yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, so if we look at this chart, you can also enable projections, so you can see how much.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Uh, oh, it's not showing here. Let me change to last year. Yeah, so when you enable
Yeah. To
projections,
2026. I can
it
see
it,
it.
sh
Yeah.
it shows you like what is the projected Bitcoin per share based on the numbers that you put here, which is uh, percentage annual BTC acquisition as a percentage, uh, annual share dilution, and then it shows you what the MSTR price is going to be at that point based on the Bitcoin price and the NAV multiplier. So you
Mm.
can play around with this if you want. Um, it's pretty interesting. Like for example, if you put 2500% here, you can see how it just
Ooh.
shoots up. But obviously that's not gonna be the number.
Yeah, but I
Uh,
mean, it's gonna be a big number. Let's be honest.
it's gonna be a yeah, but not 2500%.
Michael Saylor has some plans, and they're coming our way. Early February, in the Q4 earnings reports. It's going to blow some. You and I aren't going to be too surprised because we know that Michael Saylor's got one focus to acquire
Mhm.
at least one Nakamoto, 1.1 million Bitcoin, which will happen in my opinion. But what else do you want to go over when it comes to Saylor charts?
Yeah, so if we move over here, there's quite a lot of charts, so I don't know if we can go through all of them.
Yeah, maybe just
But
say, what do you
maybe
think are the
briefly,
key
like
ones? Because I want to get to those questions that I have of you and your journey, which I think will be pretty fun.
for sure. Let me try to do it very quickly, like a
Yeah.
sprint. So strategic reserve is how much Bitcoin they have in their treasury over time, per quarter. So in Q4, they've gotten to 446,000 Bitcoin. You can see in Q3 2020, they only had 38,000 Bitcoin. And it shows you like 446,000 Bitcoin held on balance sheet, acquired for a total of 27.8 billion. or 62,000 per Bitcoin. So that's that. This is going to keep going up. Volume, this is how much MicroStrategy is traded in relationship to all these other stocks. And you can see MSTR is number 4 behind Tesla, Nvidia, and Apple. So that's pretty interesting. What's interesting is if you look at volume as a percentage of their market cap, so you can see MicroStrategy is dominating here.
Dominating. And that's the
It's
fair metric right there.
yeah, and it's been the most traded stock as a percentage of their market cap for the past like month, I would say,
Wow.
and it's consistent.
So cool.
So, like, what I don't understand is why is this not all over the news? If this has been going on for the past month, but people are not talking about it.
No,
So,
people are talking about it behind closed doors. Like, how do we not get this out so that we can buy before it happens? But keep going.
yeah. Uh, market value. Uh, so this is the market value of their Bitcoin holdings over time. So back in 2020, the market value of their Bitcoin holdings was 1.7 billion. You can see it's been increasing. And then the carrying value is the cost. So that's that. AR performance. This is how much MSTR has performed on average per year over the past 4 years, and you can see it's 108%. Followed by Bitcoin, which is 63%, and then Nasdaq and S&P are like 16 and 14%, and gold is 7.3%. So extreme performance. It's kind of hard to argue with this chart.
Can't do it.
Yeah. Performance. So this is overall performance. So since 2020, MSTR is up 2,400%, 2.4 thousand%. Followed by Nvidia, followed by Bitcoin. You can see it tapers off. These are barely registering compared to these three. So what this chart is telling you essentially is that there's the Bitcoin wave happening, and there's also the AI wave happening that's
Right.
powered by Nvidia. So they're happening at the same time. And yeah,
Yeah. I mean, and Tesla's
Tesla's
pretty wrapped up in
te-
the AI as well.
Tesla's part of the AI wave because they have all their self-driving stuff going
Yeah.
on.
Robotics.
Yeah. So that's the story that this tells you. Market cap ranking, so you can see how MSTR ranks against US companies, S&P companies, and Nasdaq companies, and it's going to keep increasing.
Yeah. Exponentially, because that's the
Yeah,
flywheel we're talking about, my friends. Like that, as they get more, I mean, it just all happens. So exciting.
yeah. The interesting thing is that when these other companies um, end up having a lot of money at their disposal to invest, it's not easy to invest like billions of dollars and add shareholder value. Like you have to do a lot of stuff. But with MicroStrategy, they can just immediately add shareholder value by buying
Yeah.
Bitcoin.
Yeah, like when he
Like,
talks about like investing in a real estate project, it takes 5 years before
right,
you can potentially even be seeing some returns, and that's not even including like everything. That's when everything goes well. Like with what Michael Saylor's process, it's immediate.
right. I don't think that's been the case as far as I know.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah. Uh, BTC yield. So this shows you yield, uh, the yield they've been able to generate in 2022, 2023, and 2024. And you can also see it per quarter. Um, so essentially, this is how much they've been able to increase the Bitcoin per share over time. Satoshis per share. So this shows you Satoshis per diluted share and Satoshis per uh, on a yearly and quarterly basis, and also Satoshis per basic share. But it's the diluted share one that you probably want to focus on. Accumulation momentum. So this shows you how much they've ramped up their accumulation in Q4. If you hover over this, it tells you like in Q4 they've made 8 total purchases, and it tells
Wow.
you there what were the purchases and at what Bitcoin price they made it. So it shows you they've acquired in Q4 alone, in Q4 2024 alone, they've acquired 194,000 Bitcoin for $18 billion.
I mean, that's like 1% they did in one quarter. of all of
Hmm.
Bitcoin.
Yeah. So crazy stuff. Uh, Growth comparison. So this shows you the market cap growth in relation and the BTC stack growth on the same chart. I don't know how valuable this is, but I thought it'd be interesting to plot it out like this. Open interest. So essentially, uh, this is the open interest on options, and you
Saylor
can,
loves this metric, by the way. He gets
yeah,
excited about this.
and as a percent of market cap, you can see that MSTR has 100% uh, in options as a percentage of their market cap. So there's what is this? 85 billion dollars in options open interest. Um, so yeah, debt structure. This is how much debt they currently have and how it's structured. So you have all these convertible notes, and you can see what was the amount at issuance and what is the interest rate on each of these convertible notes. So you can see some of them are at 0%. And when you bundle them all together, you get an overall interest rate of 0.47%. So this is probably going to keep going down as MSTR outperforms everything, and these end up being oversubscribed, like you said.
And maybe even go
The
negative.
enemy
We'll
maybe
see.
even go negative. We'll see. Shares per Bitcoin. This is similar to the chart on MSTR Tracker, but this is on a quarterly basis, and you can see how this number keeps going up, and how um, let's see. Uh, yeah, you also have outstanding share per BTC and diluted share per BTC, which tells you like how many shares correspond to, I guess, how many shares do you need to be backed by one Bitcoin? So essentially, you need what is it, 550 outstanding shares to have the equivalent of one Bitcoin, uh, if that makes sense.
That makes
Uh,
sense. I'm glad I have more than 650 shares.
there's the there's the convertible bond performance. So you can see, for example, this bond, this convertible bond that was issued in 2021, it had a conversion price of $143, and because MSTR is sitting at $330, and they can exercise, that means that they've achieved a 130% performance
Mm.
on on that bond. Uh, and the same applies for all these other ones. For the 2029 convert, if we go back to that structure, oh, I guess it's hard to see, but essentially their exercise price is above the current MSTR stock price, so that's why it's 0%. Because they at the moment they wouldn't exercise because
Right.
it wouldn't make sense. And then you also have the Bitcoin performance and the blended convert performance, and you can see like some of these bonds are outperforming Bitcoin, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, and back like when he did his Q3 earnings report, the blended was actually at like 90%. So the
Yeah,
blended was outperforming Bitcoin in general, which of course, if we see another run up in the near term future, could become the case again.
yeah. I think this is being brought down by the fact that this is 0%.
Mm, right.
I probably shouldn't be including it in the calculation, but yeah, that's a separate conversation. Uh, but anyway, so this is a thing that we just covered before, and then there's this volatility chart. The numbers on this chart, I wouldn't necessarily trust them, but it does paint a picture of how MSTR is the most volatile stock in the stock market by far, um, and everything else just doesn't come close.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty much it. I think we covered everything. I
Well,
tried to
you've
be,
rocked it, brother. I mean, I think this is going to be. I hope this is going to be studied by individuals in TradFi and just people that are trying to wrap their head around a lot of what Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy are doing.
Mhm.
So this could be something that is super valuable to a lot of people. And we wish you the best with this information, my friends, if you're watching this right now. Can we jump to a few questions about yourself so we can learn a little bit more about your background?
Sure.
So I'd love to hear, because obviously there's MicroStrategy, and we'll get to your MicroStrategy journey in a second. But before MicroStrategy, in its current iteration at least, because MicroStrategy was born in 1989. And by the way, I've done a 1 hour and 40 minute deep dive, complete history presentation on MicroStrategy that starts back in 1989 and takes you all the way through to present day today about the evolution of MicroStrategy. So if that's interesting, you can check it out in my Master MicroStrategy series that this video is also included in as well. So we're going to start with Bitcoin. So what was your first encounter with Bitcoin? Tell us that story.
So I think my first memory of Bitcoin is in 2015. I had a roommate and he asked me if I want to buy a Bitcoin with him, and he didn't know you can buy a fraction of a Bitcoin at the time. He thought you needed to buy one full Bitcoin, and a Bitcoin was worth like $400. So he essentially wanted me to buy one with him, so spend $200 to buy a Bitcoin. And I remember my thinking was like, why would I buy that?
Totally.
At the time, I also didn't have that much money, so it didn't make sense. So that was my first interaction, and that's uh,
Let me break in here for a second, because it's
yeah.
just important that people understand that there's 100 million Satoshis for every Bitcoin. And you can buy as many or as few Satoshis as you want. You can buy as many or as whatever fraction you want to buy a Bitcoin, you can. And what's really interesting to this, Radu, I think this is like
Mhm,
just a huge gap in a lot of individuals' knowledge and understanding. Like I used to work in finance for many
mhm,
years. So I had to like take the series 6 and 6.3 and 6.6 and series 7. So I have some basic understanding of this, still not to a great degree, but enough where I started 2 days ago on my MicroStrategy Today videos. I said, I'm committing the first trading day of the year, 2025. I am buying $210 of MicroStrategy every trading day of the year. That's what I committed to doing. And now I buy it. I post the screenshot on the show. And then I actually have a portfolio tracker where I show the updated tracker on it. So I have now two buys, one at
mhm,
$307, one at $308. That's what the share price was. But I'm buying 0.68 of one share. And
mhm,
I get so many emails and comments from people being like, how do you just buy a fraction of a share? I thought you had to buy a whole share. And
mhm,
even my wife Kate, I was like talking to her. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna buy some MicroStrategy in your account, and she's like, well, what's the share price? I'm like, well, what does that matter? Like, what this? She's like,
mhm,
well, I want to know how many shares I can buy. I'm like, no, it's the dollar amount. You can buy $10 in MicroStrategy. You can buy $10,000 in MicroStrategy. That's what you should be focused on. So that's a really interesting thing to me, is that a lot of people don't understand that they can just set a dollar amount that's comfortable to them: $10, $1 a day, $10 a week, $100 a month, and they can just DCA into MicroStrategy and just slowly build their shares up. Get to one share, then go to 1.5 shares, then get to 6.9 shares. It doesn't, I'm buying 0.68 shares at this price. And when the stock, goes to 1,000, I'll be buying, much less than that with my $210 DCA per day. So that's just interesting. I wanted to kind of rant on that for a second.
Yep, makes sense. At the time, I didn't know either back in 2015 that you can buy less than one Bitcoin.
There was a time that I
Um,
didn't either, believe me.
yeah.
So what else do you want to talk about when it comes to your Bitcoin journey? And then we'll move on to how MicroStrategy came into your life, how Michael Saylor came into your life.
Yeah, so that was my first point of contact with Bitcoin. My second point of contact came in 2017, so 2 years later, and a coworker shared an article with me saying, Bitcoin is up 300%. It's now $2,000 from $700. That was the article, and I was like, oh wow, I heard about this 2 years ago, and it was $400, and
400.
now it's
Yeah.
$2,000, and seems like a good idea. Um, I like the idea. And I bought one Bitcoin and I rode it all the way up. It 10x to like $20,000 and then back down to $3,000. And then after that, I was like, what the hell did I just buy? What is this?
That was actually I was my first buy was at $9,000 as it plummeted from
Yeah,
20. I'm like, I'm buying so much lower than all those people. And then I just
yeah.
watched it go down to 3,000 and I'm like, I'm so dumb.
Yeah, so it came down to 3,000. And then like I said, I was like, what did I just buy? And then I sort of like went down the rabbit hole by myself. At the time, I wasn't on Twitter, and I was looking at these charts, and I was like, if I'm reading this correctly, it seems like it's going up forever.
Hey, actually, let's do
But it's
this.
just a
Let's flip off this. Let's flip off the screen share for a second. Let's just have our
okay.
videos on here. I don't want people distracted from this. So you
Mhm.
said, if I'm reading this correctly, it's going up forever.
Yeah, if I'm looking at this correctly, it's going up forever. And that's a crazy thought to have. Like,
Yeah,
it's not. And then I wanted to talk about it with people, but it's hard to talk to friends and family about it
yeah,
because
it is.
they're gonna be like, you're insane. Hey, that's not how the world works. And I was like, this is how this seems to work. I don't see a flaw in my reasoning. So I guess that was 2018 and 2019. I guess in 2019 I came to Twitter just to tweet out that it's going up forever. Um, and then I tweeted that out. I became obsessed with it. And then 1 year later, Michael Saylor came into the scene in 2020, and I was like, he's saying the same thing I've been
So
saying.
so
He's thinking,
you've been tracking Saylor since he made that decision
yeah,
to buy Bitcoin with like $400 million.
yeah. So essentially, since 2018, when I was thinking that this is going up forever, what I've been doing is like I've always been watching Bitcoin news and been looking at like legacy media to see what people are saying about Bitcoin. But none of them were saying, "Oh, it's going up forever. This is thermodynamically sound money." That was not the conversation. And I kept looking to see, is anyone going to talk about this, or am I just crazy? Is anyone going to talk about this, or am I just crazy?
Well,
And
Max
then
Kaiser was talking about it at least.
I didn't know about him.
Yeah,
He wasn't on CNBC. I think
true.
he was
He's
more obscure.
yeah.
So I think the biggest bull that I found at the time was Chamath,
Mm-hmm.
because he was saying it's going to go to up to $1
Yep.
million a coin.
And
But I
Samson
don't,
Mao was doing some stuff too.
yeah, but I don't think he was framing it completely the way Michael Saylor has been doing. So anyway, I've been looking at the news all the time, like every week to see is anyone talking about this. And then Michael Saylor came onto the scene, and I was like,
That's my guy.
"See, that's my guy." And then I sort of went all in, and it's been a good journey.
I would say it's been a good journey.
Yeah,
Wow. I
yeah.
mean, so do you remember what the price of MicroStrategy was when you started buying? Split adjusted.
Uh, $15.
So $15 is now at $330.
Hmm.
It's been a
And I
good ride,
bought
brother.
I bought I bought call options at $15, uh, with a $30 strike price, and that still hasn't expired. And it was up like 3 weeks ago. It was up 21,000%.
21,000%.
And
I
actually,
know
Michael Saylor gave me a medal on Twitter. I don't know if you saw.
I did not see that.
Yeah, he replied with a medal on one of my tweets. And anyway, since the past 3 weeks, that 21,000% gain is now down by 10,000%. Like that, like you can see the volatility.
That is
It's
volatility. I know
it's not.
Punter Jeff on Twitter talks about his. I don't think he ever had 21,000%, but he was like, I think
Mhm.
around 10,000%, maybe at his peak ish around there.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's a couple of smart guys you two are. I wish I was following you guys back then.
Yeah. I mean, it's gonna keep going up, so it's not too late.
Oh, I'm
Pe
in.
pe
I'm
people
in.
have been saying this for a long time. I wish I got it at I wish I got Bitcoin at $2.
Yep.
It's now $30. I'm late. So
Exactly. That's what I mean. Michael Saylor just had a great conversation with David Portnoy. And Portnoy was just like, "Oh, I hit the wrong button, and then I thought I was going to get this." And Michael Saylor was like, "You can still get Bitcoin below $1 million." Like,
Mhm.
and I just love how Michael Saylor puts things. He's like, "You realize You can still buy Bitcoin below $1 million because how he says it, you're just like, oh my God, you're right. Because it's obviously going to 1 million and then it's obviously
Yeah,
going to 10 million. It's just like, what are you waiting for?
for sure.
So
Um,
that was your journey with the MicroStrategy as far as like you saw Michael Saylor in the news, you started buying call options and potentially some shares as well. And what's your kind of like overall attitude as far as because I get this question all the time. And
mhm,
again, feel free to not answer any question you're not comfortable with because I do that all the time. I'm like, that's out of my purview. But
mhm,
you know, there's a lot of people that are like, oh, well, John, you should be buying MSTY because of the income that comes from that, or John, you should be buying MSTX and MSTU, which are levered plays off of MicroStrategy. Because if you really believe in MicroStrategy, then there are 2x to 4x levered play on that.
mhm.
What are your thoughts on some of that?
So I think you always want to own the underlying asset that you believe in and that you want to hold long term. Like when I buy Bitcoin and MicroStrategy, I don't think about am I going to sell, am I going to buy, am I going to move it into this or that. I just buy and hold it. And the plan is to hold it for like 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. I guess we'll see how the story develops. But
As
if you buy MSTX and MSTY, you constantly have to think, okay, is this a good entry point? Is it not a good entry point? I'm down 50%. Is it going to keep going down? And you also have that decay element in it, right?
right. That's what I tell
If
people to research. I go research volatility decay if you really are looking at that because that's what they need to understand that there is decay with the
mhm,
time that you're holding on to those assets.
yeah. So my like when I was all in 2020, my position was like 80% Bitcoin and like 10, 11% MSTR and like 1 or 2% MSTR call options. And I think that's generally, and there were leaps because you want to be as far ahead into the future as possible because you can't
Yeah,
predict short term. You can't
give
predict short term. Yeah.
give Michael Saylor time to cook. Come on, this guy's
Yeah.
cooking for us. And he even said on the Q3 earnings report, he was like, he's like I'm sorry if you bought a call option 30 days out. Like I'm not working for you. I'm working for my shareholders. They are my partners.
Right. That should be the thinking when you buy a leap. You want to let him cook.
Let him cook, baby, because that
Just
guy's cooking.
for sure. For sure.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, I love the guy. So,
me too. Did you ever consider going to his $100,000 party on New Year's Eve?
oh yeah, I wanted to go, but I didn't get an invite, unfortunately.
Uh,
Uh,
maybe next year. We'll both go.
maybe
That'd
there's
be
gonna be
fun.
another party, and we're all gonna go.
That'll be a 250K Bitcoin party. So listen, you spent a lot of time with us. You took us through all the charts. You gave us a little insight in your Bitcoin journey, your MicroStrategy journey. Let me just hand the mic back over to you. Is there anything else you want to share about you, your journey, you want to share with the viewer? I mean, the floor is yours.
Um, let me see. Well, I guess just because an opinion is widely held, that doesn't make it true. And even though this sounds too good to be true, that doesn't mean it's not true. I think you just have to study it and then, come to your own conclusions. Um,
Oh, here's a question I have for you.
mhm.
What are you most excited about in 2025 in regards to MicroStrategy?
In regards to MicroStrategy. Um, I guess it's hard to say. I think I'm most excited about Bitcoin becoming adopted as a strategic reserve asset by the United States and by all these other countries. And I'm interested in seeing the geopolitical game theory play out. I
Three
think that,
words:
yeah,
game theory activated. It's happening. Sorry, it's happening.
yeah. I think it's going to be very exciting, and I think there's people say gradually then suddenly. I think it's going to be at one point it's going to be very sudden, and people are going to be very confused about what's going on. And I think it's going to be a very exciting time to live
Yeah.
through.
What does Punter Jeff say? Bewilderment compounded. Something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. And MSTR is leveraged on this like sort of if you think about it, like Bitcoin is sort of this singularity event where everything is gonna like pivot
Right.
towards Bitcoin, and MSTR is leveraged on that like sort of pivot point. So I guess it's hard to conceptualize what's gonna happen, but
Yeah.
we just have to enjoy the show.
Let's just sit back, enjoy the show. And you're still feeling good about like an 80% Bitcoin, 10% MicroStrategy, or have you over the time levered up a little bit on the MicroStrategy because of just of because they really it wasn't until the middle of 2024 that they really crystallized their
Mhm.
future as a Bitcoin treasury company of the world.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure made you even more excited, if possible, than you were before, because it's just
Hmm.
to have that clear of a plan. Wow.
Yeah. I think the allocation depends on your conviction, because because you don't want the volatility to shake you out, right? The more
No, don't get
convicted
shaken
you
out.
are, the more convicted you are, the more you can withstand the volatility. And I think as an entry point, I mean, first you have to become a Bitcoin maxi to be like 80% Bitcoin. That's already a big leap. To tell someone to be like even more MicroStrategy than that, I don't know.
Yeah,
And I would also say that you should first start with Bitcoin before you come into MicroStrategy. You should first understand Bitcoin before you
I love that.
uh,
Cold
buy
storage
MicroStrategy.
Bitcoin, like
Yeah,
that's your freedom forever.
that's the core position, and then
Core.
MicroStrategy is like sprinkled on top. I think
Yeah,
that's
the
how it should be.
core and explore. Like your explore can be the fun stuff of MicroStrategy is a big part of that. And then if you want to sprinkle on some of these call options, if you're feeling like you know what you're doing, like Radu here. But my friend, anything else you want to share before we say goodbye?
Uh, no, I think we covered most of it. I think we have a lot of exciting times ahead, and
Agreed.
yeah, I'm
Well,
sure we might talk again at some point.
I'd love to. Maybe we'll try maybe like a 6 month point to see like what's been happening. I mean, we'll stay in touch via email, and then if it makes sense because of things you've added to the tracker and things that have happened with MicroStrategy, we'd love to have you come back on and talk. But thank you, my friend, and
Oh, one thing I wanted to add is that
please do.
I'm completely open to any feedback with regards to like the
Oh,
tracker or the charts or the data. So if people think I should add something or that something is missing, like let me know and I'll add it.
and you have it very easy there. Like all those buttons are like feedback, submit
Yeah,
feedback. So
yeah.
take advantage of that if you're watching right now and you have some feedback because many brains are better than even just one brain, even if that brain is Radu's, which is a pretty impressive brain, obviously. So, are you pretty active on Twitter,
Oh yeah,
on
very
X?
pretty active on
Okay,
X, yeah.
what's the handle for
It's
these peeps?
it's Lizard Wizard BTC.
Lizard Wizard. All right, we'll put that in the show notes as well, so people
I
can
probably
just
need to
click right
change the
there.
handle. It's but yeah,
Uh,
that's my current handle.
Good stuff. Well, awesome stuff, my friend. Anything else before we say goodbye?
I think that's it. Thank you
All
so
right.
much, John.
Adios. All right, that is going to do it for another episode of Master MicroStrategy. If you have a topic you would specifically like me to cover, please put it in the comment section below. I will read those comments. And if enough people want that specific topic, I will absolutely do a dedicated video to it. Upcoming videos are going to be on exactly why is volatility important with MicroStrategy? Why is the upside and the downside important to make MicroStrategy the amazing opportunity that it is? I'm also going to be going into MicroStrategy, so specifically MSTR versus MSTX and MSTY and MSTU, which are just different leveraged and option plays on MicroStrategy, the pros, the cons, and all that jazz. So there's a lot of great videos coming up specifically on mastering MicroStrategy. Whereas my daily show, MicroStrategy Today, is giving you the latest and greatest updates and insights on all things MicroStrategy for that specific day. So, hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you comment below to give me some ideas for some future Master MicroStrategy videos. And as Michael Saylor says, remember, there is no second best.
What's the second best? There is no second best.